Is it good?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tech issues.
No, we're good.
Yeah. The Heart of the Duelist, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Character study. I'm Majimana, and this is my brother Shockwave.
Hello.
And you can kind of see the PowerPoint there with the title of it. So, basically, as the title says, we're going to analyze some Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters. And the way it's going to work, you guys will kind of chime in, pick out what characters you want to do. Unfortunately, although Playmaker / Yusaku is on the picture, I haven't actually watched Reigns yet. I've been meaning to, so we're gonna have to leave Reigns off the list.
It's one of those things that you can't really find.
Yeah, it's
properly.
like
I don't think it really aired in the U.S.
It hasn't aired in the States yet, and I mean, no offense for those who like the subs, but I do lean towards the dubs because I can't read and watch the show at the same time. I'm not good at multitasking.
It's like you're basically there to watch the anime, not read the anime.
Yeah, it's like
that's how I think of it.
If I'd read the manga if that's what it was. So. But yeah, as I said, I'll go ahead give you guys an example. So we've got a PowerPoint here. So we'll pick a character, and I'm going to just use the character I'm cosplaying, Kasara, right now. So we'll pick on the series that the character is from. Click on their name from this very long list, because there's a lot of characters in each show. And there we go, get a picture of them. So that way you guys can, get an idea of who we're talking about as that reference point. So if you're not familiar with that character, you can kind of see it as we discuss from there.
Yeah.
And then
it's also this little pop figure that's right in front of us.
Yeah, it's like I had to cosplay as that, and unfortunately when I cosplay as Kasara, most people don't know who I'm dressing as, and the blue eyes and the Kaiba pop phone are about the only clues as to even what show I'm from.
Yeah, obviously they just did not watch which arc was this?
The very last arc of the original Dawn of the Duel / Millennium World, whatever you guys want to call it. So. And then we'll go back, and we're back to our...
Yeah, let's see.
So, do we have any characters wanting to
Kaiba.
Pick? Of course.
Good old Kaiba.
I swear, every time I start this panel, Kaiba's always the first one picked.
Yeah, I see. The first one I saw was Kaiba.
Yes. I love Kaiba.
I like that artwork, too. Wow.
I don't remember how to... I built this panel kind of going off of Google Images on it there, but yeah, that was good artwork for Kaiba. He is, fun fact to start off with, Kaiba was originally intended to be a one-off character in the manga. As, when they did the Magic, I think it was called Magic and Wizards, but the basically duel monsters, they did it, he's actually based off of a real person. There's one of the things in the manga they talk about, Kazuki Takahashi knew someone who... They were at a card game, they went to someone, and this person told them, yeah, come back and learn how to play this card game after you've collected 1,000 cards, or however many it was, and it peeved off Kazuki Takahashi. He was like, that's a good idea for a character.
Yeah, there you go. That's the perfect motivation.
Yeah. And they had it was a 2-parter duel in the manga. It was not the duel that became the pilot for the international anime, and Kazuki Takahashi essentially got a lot of fan mail saying, hey, we like Kaiba, we like this Magic and Wizards game, why don't... And it's like, okay, I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna do another arc. So he brought back Kaiba, he introduced Mokuba, who, in the manga, Mokuba is not the sweet kid we know in the anime. He literally has a child gang that, kidnaps Yugi and forces him to play a rigged game of capsule monsters.
Really?
Yeah. So, but they did that, and they had the arc Death Tea, which, again, the manga's really kind of dark and messed up. They did it, and then the final round, Yugi and Kaiba duel, and that's essentially the duel that became the pilot the pilot episode for the international anime. And, yeah, but I was like, I like how he, especially as he acts, he's this huge jerk to practically everyone except Mokuba. And the way I kind of see it, he's kind of has, these rings that he does. Okay, he has people he lets in, which is Mokuba. People he begrudgingly trusts, there's kind of Roland, because, his security guard, because obviously Roland has his trust since Roland's always there to help him, because Kaiba can't deal with a lot of this stuff on his own. He might say he can, but no, he can't. Yeah. And then there's, begrudgingly, he lets Yugi and the gang in, and that he, he's not openly nice to them, but he doesn't necessarily want to see them hurt. It's like, okay, they're in trouble, he'll begrudgingly give them a ride home, or... help them get out of whatever situation they found themselves in. And one of the main things I kind of see is with him is that his actions speak a lot louder than his words. Because, as I said, he's almost never says anything nice to anyone.
Yeah.
But if you look at how he does, I said, he looks out for them. There's one part in the Orichalcos arc after Joey has lost his soul and, Tristan's carrying him and Tristan's on the verge of dropping him and Kaiba kind of makes sure Joey doesn't hit his head on the pavement because that's what that's what a decent person does,
You would think, yeah.
Yeah. He's like that. But he looks to make sure that they're safe. I mean, he went out of his way to try to save Taya in Battle City. When Taya was chained during the Marik mind-controlling Joey duel, because Taya...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So
and granted, in the fact that helicopter probably cost him a lot of money, and he literally sent it swimming with the fishes.
Pretty much.
So, he's... he's a good guy.
Oh, yeah. Shall we, continue on?
Yep, let's see. Do we have...
let's see. Let's do Crow.
Crow. Oh, shoot, that's not what I wanted to do. I hit the wrong button.
Yeah, you need to hit... There you go. All right,
okay.
So... Transition back.
Okay.
There.
Yeah, that one's a user error. So, on to 5Ds. Where did I put him?
Crow. Is it Crow?
Yeah, Crow Hogan.
Yeah, right there. Underneath Luna.
Okay. It's one of those, I organized the list of characters somewhat by when they first appeared or / importance. So, we have Crow. Crow's another one of those characters that he was kind of added in last minute to the show. 5Ds had a bit of a transition between the first season and the second season that had a lot of changes with there because, in the first season we see Yusei had his own kind of gang of friends. He had Raleigh, Tank, Nervin, Blitz. Those guys kind of gotten forgotten about when Crow came in. And unfortunately when Crow came in, it also kind of demoted Akiza from the third lead of the show.
Oh, yeah.
So, and, I mean, granted, I think part of this at the time, and it's hard to tell for sure how much of this is actually true, but he plays with Blackwings. And Blackwings were very popular when they came out. They kind of took things by storm. They're very hard to kill.
They are still popular.
I know.
They still are.
I have issues with Blackwings. I have a lot of issues with Blackwings. When I play the 5Ds video games, Crow is very hard for me to beat, mainly because of the Blackwings. So it's like, but he draws a lot of parallels with Joey from the original series. I mean, he's kind of that rough and tumble. He looks out for his friends above all else, and he's a big brother because he looks out for a bunch of orphans in Satellite. Or at least he did in the first season, and they changed things and they kind of forgot about the orphans, it seemed like.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually watched 5Ds, but I think I kind of remember it's a rough time. Yeah, and then then he ended up moving in with Yusei and Jack, and part of me is just going, who's looking after those orphans? I strongly believe that he probably brought them over to Martha's, the woman who ran the orphanage where Yusei and Crow and Jack grew up, which points to Martha. I firmly believe Martha is the best Yu-Gi-Oh mom ever. Like, she's the best mom in the entire franchise. So, you talk about orphans, this is like a question that I just thought of. So, is it the same orphan that were the Kaiba brothers grew up?
They don't say it, but given there's enough time, I think there's a very decent chance it could be. Yeah. On it from there, but yeah, Crow. Granted, 5Ds at least took the because with the first two series, you kind of have to ask, where are your parents? Well, they answer the question in this show. They don't have parents. Yeah. That's why there's no one to tell them that driving card games on motorcycles might not be the best.
Don't worry about it.
But again, kind of going off topic, but back to Crow, he's. Like I said, he's, he, very, I really like him. Like I said, saying the stuff about him demoting Akiza and the Blackwings issue, that doesn't mean that I don't like him, because I just don't like Blackwings.
See, yeah, they are a nuisance at times, especially in the card game itself. Yeah, and, I mean, obviously Crow is a popular character. I mean, he got to come up again in Arc 5, which I do think when they showed him in Arc 5, he is very much the same Crow, which, granted, he's probably one of the best ones in there. My disappointment with Crow in Arc 5 is that he doesn't use any of his classic monsters in that anime. Like, you can see on the picture here, he's got his Armor Master with him. And, like, so other ones he used, like, he had Armor Master, he had Blackwing Armed Wing, Boar the Spear, Gale the Whirlwind. There's so many different
ones. But he had, like, a lot of his core ones, and he didn't use any of them in Arc 5. And, I mean, I can forgive them not using Blackwing Dragon because the signers technically don't exist in Arc 5 because Arc 5, I firmly believe, broke time and space.
Yeah, that one was that was a strange one.
Yeah, I can forgive them not having Blackwing Dragon. But come on, give him his armor master.
Yeah,
give him the armed wing.
At least the main character.
I mean, yeah, give him. It's okay to give him some updated stuff, but throw the classics in. But yeah, so I really liked the arc where he's when he actually finds his signer dragon and he's solving what happened to his friend who had given him basically the mission of looking after the orphans, given him his dual runner. That was a really cool storyline for him. I did like the fact that he actually got a draw for the against Team not Team New World, Team Ragnarok in the World Racing Grand Prix because that was good back and forth on those. So
okay.
Yeah, like I said, he's definitely up there. Again, my main issues with him is just that he kind of took spotlight away from other characters. That's not Crow's fault though. That's someone else's fault. So.
Yeah, it looks like somebody's challenging somebody else to a duel.
Okay.
But anyway, back to the characters.
Okay.
I think I saw. Let's see, where was it? Yusei.
Oh, Yusei. So we will.
Yeah, don't hit escape.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that again. So, Yusei. Honestly, Yusei is probably one of my absolute favorite characters in 5Ds. He gets a little bit of points for the fact that he's voiced by the same guy who voiced Tristan, and I do really love Tristan in the original series too. At least dub-wise.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's Greg Abbey for both.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
and he stepped it up.
Oh yeah. Well, so like that was there was an interview I saw with him when the Bonds Beyond Time movie came out, where he's like he got to do Tristan, and like once he got on at 4Kids, he could audition for pretty much any role you wanted, and yeah, he was really glad he enjoyed Yusei. Yusei is probably was at the time one of his favorite roles, and Greg Abbey thoroughly believes that Yusei could defeat Yugi. I'm not gonna try to debate that too much at this point because, well, that's not we'd be here forever trying to figure out who would actually win, aside from actually getting them to duel. But yeah,
okay.
Yusei being he's definitely a little bit different from especially beforehand where we had Yugi who was a lot more quiet like Yusei, but he would also he was definitely kind of social in his regard. Yusei is kind of he sits in the back of the room and lets everybody else talk around him while he's just fixing his mechanics. And that's kind of thing like, and I kind of believe with Yusei is that he's the rare protagonist where he's a duelist by necessity. Because if you notice, and maybe not so much with Yugi, but Yugi joins the tournaments to be he's winning in there to save his grandpa.
He kind of got sucked into the tournament to
Yugi,
save the world.
Yeah, but afterwards, Yugi still enjoys playing, and you can see that Yugi's still being a duelist long after the series. At the end of 5Ds, Yusei isn't a professional duelist, he's a scientist. So, developing the inner,
spoilers if you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. This entire panel is going to be spoilers. We can't analyze these characters without talking about what happens to them.
True.
So, he became the duelist because, well, in Satellite, they had to form the duel gang and trying to kind of clean the area up a bit because, obviously, security and the people from the New Domino City weren't going to care. And he was becoming a turbo duelist to try to get them out of Satellite and, basically get them that better life. And, once he no longer has that need to be the duelist, once their mission with the Crimson Dragon is done, he's, he's not really dueling anymore.
There's no other purpose.
Yeah, and like I said, I thoroughly believe he's more happy, sitting in his workshop making stuff versus... going out, dueling in front of crowds, and on it there.
Where do you think the, what's that one movie, Bonds Beyond Time? Where does that fit in? Because he's the one that actually went back in time with he's
Jaden the main one. So, well, at that point, Bonds Beyond Time is definitely canon to the 5D's storyline because in the very last arc, which unfortunately was not dubbed in English.
Of course. So
we're gonna rant about that another time.
Same thing with
the last season of GX. So
it's like it's a pattern.
Luckily, those are the only two that didn't get finished as of this point. Aside from Vrain's not dubbing in the States yet, but the dub has been made. It just hasn't aired yet.
It hasn't been released properly.
Okay, so because and you can probably guess somewhere. I'm guessing that takes place probably before the actual WRGP tournament starts. Just because once that tournament's done, it goes right into that last arc. But during the arc, when we're finding out about Zone, you know, he was like the main big bad, the head of Iliaster that was causing pretty much everything from season 2. He talks, and we hear about Zone's backstory, and in that backstory, in those flashbacks, you see Paradox, who was the villain from Bonds Beyond Time.
Okay.
And I think Yusei even mentions, hey, I remember that's that guy that we met at this point that I dueled with Yugi and Jaden on. So, timeline, like I said, I've read that it's supposed to be somewhere probably around the Crash Town arc, but like I said, it's probably somewhere before the tournament actually starts for that season. And for the other seasons, well, with GX, it's after Jaden leaves Duel Academy.
So somebody definitely agrees that Bonds is canon.
Yeah. And Duel Monsters is the hardest one to figure out. I personally just kind of go with it being somewhere between Capsule Monsters and the Dawn of the Duel arc. Like, there's probably... And granted, I use this in that... I use that tournament as kind of a twofold thing in a timeline I use for fanfictions I write.
Okay.
So, because at the very end of GX, and this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, you see Jaden goes back in time to meet Yugi, and he picks up this flyer that Yugi won this tournament. I think they called it Battle City version 2, but honestly, the name of the tournament doesn't matter in this case. But it's just that Yugi won this tournament. Well, it's also a tournament that Yugi is showing up at, and it's got to be a tournament before the Pharaoh left, because during that duel, Yugi turns into the Pharaoh. So, there's got to be another tournament before Dawn of the Duel.
So, does the other people realize he does go through this transformation, or... You don't really know.
That's one of those really kind of headache questions. I think probably at first they're oblivious, and then as they get to know that the Pharaoh is there...
wait a minute, something seems off.
Yeah, I think they slowly get used to it after... Like, I think they just gradually get used to, okay, yeah, there's two of them.
He gets more pointy hair.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, kind of going back to Yusei, yeah, that's... Again, that's kind of the timeline for him, and... Especially given what he found out from the future from Zone's timeline, I suspect Yusei is probably somewhat trying to do what he can to prevent that from happening, because, well, a Mech Lord invasion is not a good idea. I think we can all agree on that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So.
Alright, shall we go to the next one? Alright.
Let's pick another character.
Let's see. Ooh, how about Marik?
Well, let's see. Did I make a separate page for Yami Marik, or did I just have them both be the same? Where did I stick him? Oh, there he is. Okay, yeah, they're right next to each other. So I have Marik Ishtar, and I can just slide...
Let me, there.
Okay. And then I also have Yami Marik next to him, because you kind of have to talk about both of these together. Marik is... Well, as I said, he's definitely one of the more complex villains that we have in the show. I mean, granted, there's very few villains that are straightforward in this series, which I think is good, because, honestly, when villains are evil for the sake of being evil, it's not as interesting. I like to know if there's a reason why, because, you know, from a villain's perspective, they're doing what they think is the right thing to do. You know, unless they're just sadistic and like watching the world burn. To quote Alfred from the Dark Knight movie. So, Marik, he definitely has one of the most tragic backstories in the show, and part of this also varies a little bit between if you use that's why I use manga canon, sub canon, or dub canon on it there. But you know, he grew up, you know, expecting this Tomb Keeper's one there, and really one of the things I feel like in hindsight the Tomb Keepers probably should have mentioned, okay, after the Pharaoh leaves, you guys are free, you guys don't have to worry about this anymore. Because part of Marik was somewhat like, you know, there was nothing to indicate once the Pharaoh leaves what happens to their family, and...
Oh, there's no, alright, we know this is going to happen, but what happens after that?
Yeah, it's just like, it was just like, the Tomb Keeper's duty ends, and it's like... So like, they didn't there, and he very obviously did not want to be doing this, and his dad... Yeah, his dad was just like... I would not leave children with Mr. Ishtar.
Oh, of course not.
No. Mr. Ishtar was not good with kids.
Well, this one maybe not as bad, but if you flip to the other one, no.
Well, Mr. Ishtar is the reason that dude exists.
Right. I thought you were just referencing him.
Yeah, no, with Marik's dad.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Granted, I kind of think that if Marik's mom had lived, like, because Mrs. Ishtar was definitely very loving. I mean, she treated Odeon like her own. I
feel like there was a movie similar to that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, and I kind of think if Mrs. Ishtar had lived, I think she probably could have pacified her husband a bit and, let Marik actually be a kid and maybe still have pushed Odeon or let Odeon be the heir instead of Marik. But, and because Yami Marik, despite the name and the official title for him, he's not a Yami in the same sense that the Pharaoh or the Thief King are. He's literally just a split personality from Marik.
I think that's probably where they get the term, like, Yami Yugi. I think that's where they just use that same terminology.
Using it because they refer to the Pharaoh's Dark Yugi as, from what the puzzle did. But yeah, anyway. Because the evil personality came out as kind of protecting Marik from all of the abuse that Mr. Ishtar put him through and put Odeon through. Though. I mean, Ishizu outwise, he probably has the least amount of scars, but given that she was a girl and he didn't seem to care as much about whether or not she was obeying, and he put all of his focus on Marik, she was probably ignored.
There's probably a lot of speculation you could probably make with that.
I mean, there's one of those. They probably didn't want to get too. I say probably didn't want to get too graphic, but in the manga, it does get pretty graphic in how Mr. Ishtar dies. So, yeah, but they kind of leave the actual abuse to the imagination of the readers, and that's probably for the best, especially because this isn't an R-rated panel.
Yeah, that.
So, and there's also a lot of misunderstanding with Marik because. After Mr. Ishtar is killed or sent to the Shadow Realm in the dub version, and Shadi appears, Marik is led to believe that the Pharaoh is the one responsible, even though Pharaoh's not there. He's sitting in a puzzle being solved halfway across the world. And I think part of that Marik also put a little bit of blame on Shadi too, but that was part of why Marik didn't. He resented his duty. He kind of thought that the Pharaoh was responsible for his father's death, even though it was, this crazy psycho here. And, yeah, it just kind of twisted him from there. And really, I mean, again, as kind of implied, Odeon's the main one who kept Marik on track and, you know.
If you actually watch the Battle City Finals, you can definitely see how crazy this guy looks. He has the veins sticking out.
Yeah, he gets like... Yeah, granted, they don't give an exact reason for why he's doing that, but yeah, he's just,
there. So you can see it better.
So, yeah, he's on it there, and of course, fun fact, if you only watch the dub, the Millennium Rod hides a knife inside of it.
Oh,
so,
yeah. What was it, the Magna, or what was it?
The Rod.
Or what series had that one? The Magna, or was it in the anime?
In both.
Okay.
You never see it in the dub because the dub kind of censors the manga, so you never saw it. But yeah, there's and
lots of people talked about that censorship, I think, in the last hour. So you've already got a good spoonful of that.
Yeah, and
there's just plenty more.
It's like I'm not gonna say that the censorship is all bad. I mean, I get it in some cases, and in all honesty, I think the Shadow Realm is brilliant. Because I feel like it kind of makes things a lot worse for the characters, because if you think about it, when somebody dies, most people like to think that they move on to somewhere nice and, be at peace. The Shadow Realm is not that nice place.
No.
It's so, instead of thinking that they've moved on to somewhere nice and peaceful, no, you're being told that they're in a realm full of torture and it's not a good place for them to be in.
No, of course not.
So, and I think it also does kind of make sense because you have characters that are supposedly dead, but then they get resurrected for no reason. Yeah, there's not a really good reasoning for why they're exposed. So being sent to the Shadow Realm and being saved from the Shadow Realm makes a lot more sense, I think, in the context of that story. So.
Since we're sticking around with the same era, do you have one for what's this guy's name? Bobasa?
Bobasa.
Bobasa?
Yeah. Bobasa, I'm not always sure what to make of Bobasa, but I think I put him on here. Where did he go? He's in the very last arc. Oh, there he is. Right under Kisara. Bobasa. I kind of feel like he's Yu-Gi-Oh's answer to Aladdin's genie.
Yeah, I actually had to Google. I was like, I don't remember this one, so I have to...
So, I mean, and he has a drastically different role between the manga and the anime, so... It's one of those, I've read about the manga in it because I've seen the anime adaptation, but in the manga he was essentially the person who opened the gate for them to go to the memory world, and I think I saw a picture that he could like mold all the Millennium items on his stomach. I don't know, it was kind of weird. So I like his anime one where, like I said, he's kind of like Aladdin's genie. He's, when you get there and they don't...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I see a picture right there. Yeah, he actually has it all just...
Like, and... but, because he, like he said, he pretty much spends most of the time eating, and they're all kind of looking after him, and he's, they're looking on it. Like, one of my funniest bits is in the arc when the pharaoh is missing after Bakura took the puzzle. They're trying to find it, and they're looking along the river for where the pharaoh might be, and he comes on, he's like, look what I found, and he turns around, and the pharaoh's cape is on his back. And then Joey's just like, there didn't happen to be a person attached to that cape, was there?
I hope not.
It's like, nope. But it's like, and then of course, they spend the time where they're looking for information, trying to figure out the pharaoh's name, and he... they feed him all the food that he wants, so he's not hungry for once, and probably the only time in the entire anime. And then he expands like a balloon, and they ride him like a magic carpet to the pharaoh's tomb to find where his name is. And it's like...
So, yeah, definitely feels like a unofficial genie.
Yeah, he comes across very much as a genie character, and like I said, he's a very sweet guy, but they really didn't explore a lot to what he really was, and granted... Unfortunately, the whole arc kind of suffers from that because it's a very short arc. I mean, the Dawn of the Duel arc, which you would think would be a very long and important arc, seeing how we've spent the entire series trying to figure out what all of the pharaohs past, and the arc isn't even as long as Duelist Kingdom.
Oh wow!
So it's like yeah, I think it's about a few episodes shorter than Duelist Kingdom, and I'm not counting like the legendary heroes and Dungeon Dice monsters in that count. So it's like, if you count from like episode 1 to when they leave Duelist Kingdom, like I said, it's probably about the same length as that. I think a few episodes shorter. So yeah. So they could have expanded so much more in the Millennium World arc, getting to know a lot of these characters, and yeah, Bobasa's just one. It's like it's so hard to figure out exactly what it is he's doing. And I'll admit, I kind of like characters when you don't always know what you're thinking because they're such a wild card, and you just know when they show up something interesting is going to happen.
Yeah.
And they apply that to Bobasa, and he's just so... It's hard not to smile when watching him, though, because he's so sweet and he's funny as heck.
Yeah, they kind of have to.
Yeah.
Alright, shall we continue on?
Okay. So let's pick another character, guys.
Let's see. Let's do something from Zexal. Change up a little. Let's not totally focus on the original. How about Shark? Reginald?
Yeah, Reginald. Yeah, that's why it was so kind of funny when in the dub, and his sub name I believe is Ryuga Kamishiro, but and I might have butchered that pronunciation. But yeah, that's a bit funny in the show was that they called him Shark through the first like several episodes, and then when they're reading about what happened to him at the tournament, and Tori's reading over her shoulder, Shark's real name is Reginald.
Oh yeah.
It's like really that's what his name is. So
I like one of the comments in the chat. His hair looks like an angry octopus.
That might have someone by design, seeing how he does use a water deck.
Yeah, Shark. What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean that's why his nickname is Shark, also because he duels with sharks. I mean,
it's kind of obvious.
I don't think they could have been more on the nose with that.
Too bad it's not like a mohawk with the door, so you show more of the dorsal fin.
I don't think that would have been a good look. So Shark, kind of as if you notice with Yu-Gi-Oh, they always seem to have like the protagonist, the rival, and the third person you can argue as a best friend or a secondary rival, you know. But Shark definitely fills that number 3 slot if you consider Kite the rival. And in this case, they're kind of 2 rivals because both Kite and Shark kind of go back and forth for that. But Shark, I think, is definitely one of the most... he's probably one of my absolute favorite characters in Zexal. You know, he starts off in that Kaiba role. He's the antagonist that Yuma has to defeat in the first episode. And, again, he kind of like Kaiba, you know, he comes across as this typical bully. You know, he's beating up on Bronk because he can, because he's kind of angry at the world. And then when you find out why he's so angry, that he was, you know, manipulated into being thrown out of the national tournament. His sister nearly died in a fire.
Oh, yeah.
And... started by the guy who got him thrown out of the national tournament.
Of course. Yeah. That's usually how it always is.
And then in the second season, when they start finding about the Barians and his connection with them, it's like there's so much that this kid has to deal with, and technically the characters in Zexal are like 13 or 14, and it's like, I don't know how I would be dealing with these when I was 14.
Yeah.
So... on it there, and, you know, he, you know, like I said, kind of like with Kaiba and, those, he gets that grudging, like, I think he respects Yugi, and he trusts Yuma, and that Yuma helped straighten him out, you know, he put him back on that better path, and, you know, unlike Kaiba, who refuses to accept any kind of advice on it there. See, this is where, it's also very hard to not talk about Kaiba in comparison to other characters sometimes. Kaiba, I swear, sometimes Kaiba has a bigger impact on the show than Yugi does.
Yeah, even when Kaiba just like gives there was one I think it was when they were dueling Noah. Mm-hmm. He's like, don't screw up.
Yeah, that's like that's Kaiba's encouragement. Don't screw up. But and Shark kind of does that too. But I mean, I think one of my favorite instances with Shark showing how much he cares is in the second season. We have Yuma just got his butt handed to him by Mizar, the Galaxy Eyes user from the Barians. And Yuma just, he's kind of broke. He has no idea. Like, I mean, they got beat so bad the 2 of them ended up in the hospital. Yuma, because he fell off a cliff, and Shark tried to catch him and ended up falling off the cliff with him. Well. It's like, this is what Shark gets for caring. And Yuma's, like, pretty much at the point, like, I'm not gonna, like, I can't do this. There's no way I can beat them. And Shark essentially drags him to the roof, or I shouldn't say drag, but he kind of took the golden key, which is Yuma's equivalent to the Millennium Puzzle and what holds Astral, up to the roof and said, you're not getting this back until you beat me in a duel. And Yuma, like, is so freaked out now, he's like, he's not even attacking, and then Shark in the middle of the duel just goes, fine, tosses him the key, use Astral, come at me!
There you go.
And even then, it's like, okay, finally, Yuma got back, and I don't remember actually how the duel ended. I think Yuma won because protagonist power.
Of course.
But
it's obvious.
That was Shark's motivating, you know, getting Yuma off his butt and fighting again, which made, you know, the last arc, and this is why I say with Zexal, like, Zexal was kind of hard to get into at first because it took so long to set the stage and get to know the characters, and Yuma was really kind of annoying. But once the tournament got going and you knew all the stakes that were going in and what was driving each character, gosh, you had to give each character a hug because, boy, these guys are suffering.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, come here. It's okay. It's okay.
All right, shall we continue? Yep. I think that's a good amount of with good
Shark
old Shark.
Yes.
What
other ones do we have in?
Let's see. We have a Nesbit request.
Ooh, Nesbit. Now, unfortunately, because with the Noah's Ark characters, and where did I... Oh, I think I just put it as Big 5 because...
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
On it with there, because with the Big 5, they didn't give these guys... I mean, they were basically corporate goons who were in for the money. And really add any kind of... there's not a whole lot really to look at them, so unfortunately to kind of get into them a little bit, we have to do some headcanonings, and they expand a little bit with, like, Crump kind of grew up not that loved by his parents, that's why he really liked penguins, even to a creepy amount, and he became an accountant because he liked to count things. So, on it there, and with Nesbit, part of the headcanon on it there is, I mean, you notice he always kind of talks in a monotone. He's always very much more comfortable with his machines and his gadgets. And on it there as opposed to... Yeah, I'm sitting next to the guy. Robotic Knight was one of his... And Machine King were some of his favorite cards.
They were.
Always.
They still are.
So it's like... When he liked that duel just because he got to see the Machine King.
It really was, because it's machines. Look at the setup. I had to build it, so yeah.
Yeah, he does all the tech. I'm just here to talk about the stuff. Person. Yeah. So, with Nesbitt there, because, yeah, again, he kind of had it on there, so I kind of wonder, and admittedly, I have a little bit of a headcanon that maybe, and this is one of those, maybe probably really grasping at straws, but... You notice that when Kaiba got rid of the lab, Nesbitt was really particularly upset. Now, I mean, granted, yeah, all the stuff that he was working on, but he probably had a backup somewhere. I mean, he could easily have built another lab. So, yeah, like, you know... I
would have planned for that.
Yeah. So
obviously, he didn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, and so I kind of wonder if maybe he, and again, this is where I'm really kind of headcanoning on this, he maybe he had a nephew or someone, and he was working on building, like, some kind of really nice gift. Like I said, I like to somewhat imagine these villains having a little bit of a heart. Maybe not a whole lot, but at least enough for, like, those rare people they care about. And maybe that was in the lab, and that's why he was so... And I kind of think that maybe it was Robotic Knight toy, which might be why he picked Robotic Knight as his deck master for...
Yeah.
And
it seems appropriate.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, there's no canon proof for that whatsoever, but that's kind of what I like to think. He's one of the ones that's, for that reason, is somehow easier to imagine more death to him than the other ones, like Johnson. I have no excuse for Johnson. I have no excuse for Gansley, either.
There is actually a, I think there's a couple new cards that were just released, maybe a month or two ago. Yeah, probably somewhere in there. That actually has its, ones that are based on appliances. Mm-hmm. So I think they're called like Appliancer or something like that. Mm-hmm. But on its assembly line on one of the cards, artworks, and it has Robotic Knight doing like a little checklist on it. So it's like, oh yeah, there you go.
Probably a little bit of a nod to the Big Five. I mean, the other kind of interesting thing I read about the Big Five that I hadn't noticed at that point, but if you look at the duels, Joey dueled Johnson, who used the Judge Man, which was a monster that Kaiba used in Duelist Kingdom. And Kaiba dueled Lecter, who used Jinzo, was a monster that Joey regularly uses. Yeah. So it's like, that's a fun little switch around.
Yeah. So, shall we continue on?
Yeah, okay.
There's, people really are wanting to know about Zigfried.
Oh, gosh, Zigfried. Okay. Let's see. Where are you?
I just saw him right before you clicked on...
He's at the bottom. Yep. Because I kind of organized them a little bit by season on that list. So, Zigfried von Schroeder. He is literally the only main antagonist of any of the arcs to not duel Yugi at all.
Oh, yeah.
Because he actually was beat by Kaiba, and then he let his little brother duel Yugi, and Yugi still won. And, I mean, they kind of set it out to kind of be a German version of Kaiba. Only less, the German less successful version, and I mean, yeah, and I've heard it phrased as essentially Zigfried's problem is that Kaiba beat him in line at the patent office.
Oh yeah,
because they both, I mean, they were following such similar paths that their companies were making more machines and competing with each other, and then once their fathers were no longer the ones in charge and Kaiba and Zigfried took over, they both made the same switch to games at probably about the same time. It's like, Schroeder Corp's always like a step behind Kaiba Corp, and that's what like irritated Zigfried. But he's very skilled at hacking, seeing how he was able to hack Kaiba Corp with very little resistance until Kaiba actually figured out what was going on it there. And I guess I think part of him, because I think his soft spot, like Kaiba, is Leon, his little brother. And it's also one of those where I kind of like to think post-series, like after the Grand Championship and, Leon and Zigfried are kind of like, brotherly hugging it out after being defeated. I like to think that those two kind of go on a better path after that. I mean, I always like to be hopeful for the characters in that they sort their lives out and, you know, become better people. And honestly, and part of this is because of a fan fiction I read at one point, but Kaiba and Zigfried might have to deal with the fact that it's very easy to imagine Mokuba and Leon becoming friends. And if those two are friends, how much do you think Kaiba and Zigfried are going to have to interact afterwards?
Right?
So it's like, I feel like those two could somewhat bond over their big brothers that care about that are looking after their little brother, because, I mean, we know that we see Zigfried's dad in that flashback talking to Gozaburo, but we don't hear anything about them afterwards, and since Zigfried's in charge, I think it's probably reasonable to assume that their dad is, passed, or has other really complicated situations that make him no longer head of the company.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Zigfried probably would have rebelled as badly as Kaiba did against Gozaburo, because Gozaburo's horrible.
Alright, so I got next one. Well, one of the ones I like for the next character.
Okay.
Unless you're not done with him.
No, I mean, there's... Yeah, like I said...
I bet you could talk a lot more, too.
Yeah, I mean, I could easily... I was like, this panel's only 1 hour. I could probably easy go for much
probably
longer
3,
than that.
at least.
Yeah.
Well, you've seen all the characters.
Yeah,
like you've seen the one list? Yeah, there's like 5.
Yeah, there's 5. There's 5 lists all about that
5.
One, so... And that's not even counting brains that we haven't gotten to yet.
That'll make it 6.
Yeah, we'll eventually get to 6 on this list.
GX. We're going to go do Bastion.
Ah, Bastion. our Australian
You really
British
need to change the font on this. I cannot read that.
Well, part of it was the default color for the hyperlinks in PowerPoint, and yeah.
You'll fix it later.
Yeah. Anyway, Bastion. Bastion is the character that I think that the writers really had no idea what to do with. And it's like, poor guy keeps getting forgotten about, because he's the character that, when you start off, he kind of almost looks like he's gonna, I should say, GX didn't entirely follow that big 3 mold, in that 80 to 90% of the duels were Jaden, and occasionally they thought, oh yeah, we should give this one character a duel to make us remember that they are important, but we'll go back to Jaden. So, Bastion kind of looked up as being kind of that, he was almost set up as a rival, and that they showed a lot in the early episodes, with the yin and the yang. Jaden was the dragon and Bastion was the tiger. Kind of those conflicting ideals under there, that Bastion was going to be a really big rival to Jaden, and it came to the head in the school, or being the representative for the school duel in the first season, which, by the way, the school duel as an annual event never happened again.
Right? They say, that's true.
Like, this happens every year. Where was it in season 2 and season 3/4?
Well, now do those seasons that what we watched actually different years?
Yeah,
or is it all the same year?
Each season was a different school year.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, with 3 and 4 each taking the 3rd year for them, because it was a 3-year school. So, anyway, they were the representative for that, and then that was literally the only time that Jaden and Bastion dueled.
I hope they say it wasn't that important then.
Yeah, and the other thing with this, they show him early on, his first, full duel, he has 6 decks. I mean, you don't see any other character that has 6 decks. He's got 1 for each attribute.
I know, I really like that, because that's what I do.
And, yeah. And we see his water deck, because the water deck is what he uses against Chaz when those two duel. And he uses, a modified version of it against Jaden. And then we see the Earth deck when he duels against Tania, and then later on, his last duel in the Society of Light arc. Those are the only 2 decks we've seen, and in the opening of the show, when they show him, they literally show him his water dragon, his signature monster of the water deck on one side, and the fire dragon on the other. We never see that fire dragon as a duel. We don't know what the fire dragon does.
I feel like it's probably something with that the water dragon, the bonding H2O.
Yeah,
it's
probably a combustion.
It's probably with combustion.
Yeah, because
it's science.
Yeah, because that's the thing. He was a science person. And it's one of those people. People who probably don't study chemistry would entirely catch everything that he's doing, and. Well, us having a dad who was a chemistry major, we've picked up a little more than we should. Or at least, so we probably know more than some people about chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
So, but, some is more than we want to. But, like I said, they never did anything with it there, and then, like I said, he dueled against Jaden there, and then he didn't duel again until the Shadow Riders arc, and he's one of the 7 picked to wield a Spirit Key. And then he loses his only duel in that to Tania.
Oh, yeah.
Which, that was, I mean, I'll admit, I kind of like the couple of Tania and Bastion. I mean, those two, just because the way that they kind of reconnected when she came up again in season 3, it's like, okay, they're
Do you have a character profile for her?
Yeah,
let's see if we can actually show a picture.
Yeah, it'll be easier too, because I have her listed with the Shadow Riders. That's Tania.
So this is who we're
the
talking
Amazon,
about.
yeah, because she was the Amazon Shadow Rider. So, but with Bastion, and like I said, he dueled there, and then they kind of just forgot about him. I mean, yeah, he was there for Barry because he's the brains of the group, so he's the one who kind of analyzes some people's cards as they're doing it, but at the same time, it's very hard to analyze Jaden because nobody knows what Jaden is thinking.
I don't think Jaden knows what he's thinking.
Jaden doesn't know what he's thinking either.
Except for food.
Yeah, food and dueling. That's like, there's a bit where Jaden forgets that the water from a legendary ocean is just a hologram and he thinks he's gonna drown. It's like, Bastion, Jaden, you do realize it's not actual water. Oh, right. So, I'll flip this back to Bastion. Maybe. At least it's easier since we clicked on the hyperlink.
Yes.
Okay. On it there, but I said, yeah, he didn't duel. He was kind of there. I think his last duel was again against Chaz, which made him join the Society of Light, which I don't think he was actually brainwashed into joining it like Chaz or Alexis were, which kind of leads to a little bit of a theory I have in that the brainwashing was kind of only for those who were not willing to join. Like, if you were willing to join, it's like you want to join, so they didn't have to force you into doing it. And that's kind of what led to, because they played on his insecurities about...
Oh, yeah.
Because at that point, every duelist in Raw was drafted into the society except for Bastion, which just kind of matched, it's like, what, I'm not good enough, they don't want to try to force me in? So that's what led him to... So, but yeah, and then they didn't have to defeat him to free him. He just went, oh, I admire the scientist. I'm ditching the society to go follow the scientist. It's like, dude. And then he's literally not on campus until the school gets sucked into that desert dimension. So it's like, and nobody even noticed he was gone. It's like, oh, Bastion. So it's like, it does kind of feel like the writers really just didn't know what to do with him.
It really does.
Because as more rivals came in, they introduced Aster. They had their arc with Zane, although Zane and Jaden never dueled again after the graduation match.
Not really.
Well, yes, like I think they had one that did not complete. But yes, they had Aster. They weren't even entirely sure what to do with Chaz sometimes, and Chaz was supposed to be the main rival to Jaden.
I know, right? And then he joined them. It basically was the Kaiba wannabe.
Yeah. Well, he kind of was.
All right. Shall we continue on?
Yeah.
All right. Let's do one of my favorite ones. Pegasus.
Oh, Pegasus.
The creator of...
Pegasus is definitely one of my favorite villains. There he is. But then, of course...
Oh, you had to pick that picture.
Well, let's face it, that picture kind of... that shows off Pegasus's personality.
What is he holding?
He's holding his Funny Buddy comic.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. It's funny because he always loved reading cartoons. So it's like, the one thing about Pegasus I wish we could have seen more of was his wife, Cecilia. And I know that's one of those also where dub canon showed them actually getting married. I don't think they got married in the sub, but, let's face it, those two are destined to be together. That ship is canon.
Yeah.
But so much of with him on it there, I mean, a lot of his evil stuff, I think, just came from the dark magic of the eye, kind of manipulating him.
Maybe just a little, yeah.
I mean, the only other person that we've seen that wielded the eye before him was Akhenaten, who was the guy who created the items way back in Egypt. And
oh, yes, that's not a very good influence regardless, so...
Yeah, well, Akhenaten's also a complex guy. I don't think Akhenaten is pure evil either, but despite what he did to the character I'm dressing as.
Yeah.
Anyway, but with Pegasus, because everything that he did in Duelist Kingdom was with the goal of bringing back Cecilia. And, because, I mean, obviously, he loved her so much, and he didn't know how to go on without her. So, because he even finding the eye, he was going through Egypt because the Egyptians believed in the afterlife, and he wanted to reach there because he wanted to connect with Cecilia again and get her back.
Find a way to do it.
Yeah, and that's what
led to him. At least he was motivated.
Yeah, and that's what led to him meeting Shadi and getting the eye, and that's where with the eye he firmly believed that he could succeed in doing it, which then of course when he lost the eye, he shows up again in the Orichalcos, and he's actually very helpful for them. So he looks out for them. So he's like, okay, yeah, I screwed up. I think after that he kind of finally learns to let her go a bit. Obviously he's he still has his kind of shrines for her and her portrait up in the castle, because I don't think he's ever going to stop loving her.
Oh yeah. But so I do like how this points out, and definitely makes sense. So for his fun side, that's in his deck, he has Toons and the Relinquished monsters. So the Toons are his funny side, lovable side, and Relinquished is his darker side. That's probably why you could definitely see it, especially when Relinquished only has an eyeball.
Yeah, or like
that
with
looks
1,000
exactly
eyes
like the Millennium Eye.
That emphasis on eyes is very likely the reference to the fact that the Millennium Eye is what he's wielding.
Yeah, exactly. Especially you can see it in 1,000 Eyes Restrict, when it Relinquished becomes more of a purple with many eyes, but its main one is the golden color.
The main eye looks like the item.
The eye in his eye socket.
Yeah, and also, I might have to look at the little snapshot in the Orichalcos arc when Mai defeated him. I don't think he really used Relinquish after that. I kind of think he stuck with just the Toons, because he never used Relinquish when he showed up in GX.
Yeah.
And, like I said, we only get a glimpse of the duel between Pegasus and Mai when she defeated him, so I don't know if Relinquished was on the field or if it was one of his other monsters. I'd have to look again to be sure.
I will have to take a look at that. I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
It would make sense, if that was the case, if he's no longer using Relinquished, then...
So, because like I said, I do love when he shows up in GX, because it really feels like in GX he's kind of just screwing with everybody around him. When he duels both Crowler and Bonaparte at the same time, because they think they're fired until they want to get a job at Industrial Illusions. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll duel both of you. If you win, you get the job. Now, whoever wins whoever has more life points gets the better job. And so it makes them start fighting with each other, and he's just like, I got it.
Yeah, have fun. They just destroy each other.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, dude, you guys need to focus on beating him, because he's literally messing with you. And one of the other aspects that's kind of explored a little bit in the Yu-Gi-Oh! R manga. Now, one of the things to note, with manga and anime being different, in the anime, Bakura just took the Millennium Eye and Pegasus was, severely injured, and he eventually recovered, because we see him in the Orichalcos arc on it in there. Well, in the manga, he was actually killed when that happened. So we don't see Pegasus again after that. The Orichalcos isn't in the manga, neither is Grand Championship or Capsule Monsters. But the Yu-Gi-Oh! R storyline kind of takes place at that Orichalcos equivalent. And that's where you kind of see the implications that Pegasus has kind of been taking care of orphans also. And so he's had some proteges, and that's where it's like, yeah, Pegasus has found other people he cares about too, which I think, I don't like that he died in the manga, but I think that at least the fact that he became such a person that these other people cared about, that they were trying so hard to bring him back from the dead.
Okay.
Is a nice touch that just showed that, I think he has a small place for a soft spot for kids.
Yeah, probably. Probably just a little.
He lends himself to being a fun uncle-ish character.
Alright, do you think we have time for one more?
Let's see, I think we
can.
About
5 minutes?
Okay, yep.
Alright, so the last one I saw was Cyrus.
Ooh, Cyrus.
That should be a good one.
Yep,
look at him, all motivational.
Yes, yeah. One of the rare times that Cyrus is confident. Cyrus, I think, Cyrus had probably one of the most consistent arcs of GX. Of course, granted, that bar is kind of set pretty low, because a lot of the GX characters were very inconsistent at times, like Chaz and Bastion and there, but Cyrus is very much, he's the character that grows up, he has no confidence in himself at the beginning of the season, and he starts to learn that from Jaden.
Yep.
And, he kind of grows, and as I said, they make it very gradual in that, he's always intimidated by Zane, because Zane's this top duelist of the school, nobody messes with Zane. And then you get his little brother, who's a Slifer Red, flunks his tests.
That there's no motivation behind it, or whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no... He knows that he has to... he has that pressure of having to live up to the high stakes, but he just... bends under pressure, per se.
Yeah, like, he doesn't, because he thinks that no matter what he does, he's not going to be as good as Zane.
Yeah, exactly.
And he kind of slowly starts to stand on his own, and even gets to the point that when Zane takes that drastic personality flip, which the Truesdale parents are ones that I definitely have to wonder where they are in GX, given what happens with Zane and Cyrus. But with Cyrus, he gets to the point, he gets himself promoted to Raw Yellow, he's doing on himself. Unfortunately, he also goes 30 episodes without a duel in the series, because, again, Jaden gets 90% of them.
I know, right?
Because it's like, he teams up with Jaden against the Paradox Brothers, and I don't think he duels again until he duels Missy for his Raw promotion in the next season. And I was like, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, just a little.
It's like, you're one of the main three, and that's what you're
getting. And then
he,
there's that, and then... The other duel that I can think of is when he was facing against Zane.
Yeah, I mean, he got enough confidence that he basically stood up to Zane and said, like, dude, this isn't right. This isn't what you taught me and everybody else here. That everybody at the school looks up to you, and this isn't you at all. I need to knock some sense into you. And granted, this is also after Atticus tried something very similar, and Atticus got his butt handed to him. And Atticus was even using Night Shroud's deck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
so... On one hand, it's probably a good thing that Zane won that duel, because it put Night Shroud back in the bottle, because I don't think we wanted to deal with Night Shroud at that point.
Just in case.
Yeah. So, and
it's like a happy accident, really.
Yeah. but granted, I mean, and Cyrus ended up in the hospital after this, and that was because Zane was just so brutal at that point, but... I think it still kind of knocked Zane out of it a little bit, that Zane kind of started backing off after that. I mean, we didn't see Zane duel again until the 3rd season, or really see much of Zane at all after that.
Oh, yeah.
For a while, because they keep forgetting about characters in favor of Jaden.
Yeah, it's like they forget to bring people back. Not from the dead, but...
yeah, it's like, oh yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, we have this guy.
This character. But, and it's also kind of nice that they acknowledge that after, or at least... in the part where Jaden is transitioning into the Supreme King and Cyrus is on his own, and Cyrus essentially makes the duel that, especially when they're in a world where you lose a duel, you die or get sent, Sent to the Stars was their equivalent of the Shadow Realm for that arc, which, again, makes a lot more sense because the characters aren't actually dead. They are literally sent to another dimension. On it there, and Cyrus is kind of freaking out a little bit about how much Jaden has changed at that point, and Zane points out to him, you had the courage to stand up to me and tell me that I was doing things wrong. Why can't you do that for Jaden, too? Mm-hmm. And that's why also I think it was fitting for when everybody was being sacrificed to make super polymerization, and Cyrus was supposed to be one of those ones, and his was Doubt. Because Doubt is Cyrus's enemy throughout the entire series. He's always comes back to doubting himself. And the main thing he just learns that if he's not doubting himself, he's actually doing pretty good. It's when he gets inside his own head and starts second-guessing what he's doing is when he starts to fail. So
pretty much.
But, like I said, that's what I said. His growth, it was so much behind the scenes for a lot of it, but he had one of the steadiest growths ever for GX. And to the point that he actually did surpass Zane at the end and took over the cyber style. So.
Okay. So I think our time is pretty much up. So I think we had a good wrap up. Apparently I think we talked more about the original Yu-Gi-Oh series. And
it's like every time I've done this panel, it always seems to be original series gets the most character picks, followed by GX, and like I said, I think this is the first time I've ever made it to actually made it to Zexal when doing this panel, because it's always the first 3 series that gets picked, and like I've yet to have someone pick anything from Arc 5, which is probably good because I haven't entirely finished Arc 5 yet. I'm about halfway through.
Yeah, I do like
Arc 5 though. Yeah, I really just need to sit down and finish it. I keep getting distracted by writing my other fan fictions, which take place in GX and DM.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's like you only have so much time, and it doesn't really help when it wasn't released properly.
Yeah.
So
that's the Reigns issue. I really do need to watch Reigns. I want to watch Reigns. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about Sevens. I've looked at the premise for it, and
I don't know about that one either. That one, I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to judge it without actually watching it just yet, but I don't know.
Yeah.
The main thing that's probably going to get that I have hope for in Sevens is that we get a relevant female duelist, because none of the girls stay relevant through their entire series. They get reduced to cheerleaders and plot devices by the end.
Okay, well, I think that's our time for us. One last thing before we go. Don't forget we have our charity going on. Feel free to donate. The website is, I have to look at it again, autismnebraska.org/NebrasKon -donations. Just go there, just click on the link, you'll find it. I think that I've seen several times it's posted in chat, so definitely go give your support. Now coming up right now is going to be it looks like a talk about AMV and with their editors, so this should be a fun one. So we'll give you a go right there, and keep on watching.